Now, Mark Twain said that once the German language gets hold of a cat, it's goodbye cat, and that's about the amount of it. So what exactly was Mark Twain trying to say? Is German really that bad?
In stehen, in Stau und bin in Steh.
And what happens to the poor cat?
Sah ein Knab ein Röslein stehen, Röslein auf der Heiden, war so jung und morgenschön.
Now see all these words? Well, one reason that German is really not all that hard to learn is that German and English have the same ancestors. In fact, 40% of our words in English are very, very similar. And even if the German spelling is different, well, your brain adjusts easily when it sees the familiar parts. See what I mean here? Now, look how close to English these phrases are. Once you know a bit about German spelling, you can decode many sentences like this one.
There are Ö, and Ü.
And another thing that's pretty easy to learn is the 4 extra letters. You'll get used to them in no time because they make sounds that you already know.
The last German umlaut is die Ü, used in words like Tür, verrückt and Rückerstattungsverbindlichkeit.
But legend says that there is a dark side to German pronunciation.
Sprr, sprr, sprr. Sprechen, grün, grün.
Okay, so the guttural R, the R sound. Who invented this sound anyway? You will need a lot of practice with this little monster. It's not that every R in German is pronounced, just a lot of them. This one here, for example, just ignore the R.
Ich spreche gerade mit euch.
Yep, certain German sounds are really hard for beginners. There's even a special term for harsh sounds at the end of words, so they know very well that they do this, these Germans. Also, there are diphthongs that take some getting used to. The good news is that each letter or letter combination usually sounds the same no matter where in a word it goes, unlike English. So once you've got the patterns down, sounding out a word in German is easier than you might think.
Stahlschauchen.
Speaking of patterns, I'm very, very consistent personally, and if you click these 3 buttons here, I guarantee a lot more fun language stories coming your way. How is word building in German like Lego? Well, German is very precise. It's also notorious for long compound words like this one. But look how the word is just made up of a bunch of smaller words. See, German has an incredible ability to create new terms out of lots of small ones. So it's just a matter of knowing enough vocabulary to understand these compound nouns. You can even build your own. What about plurals? Well, in English, we just add an S or sometimes an ES, depending on the spelling. But German will offer you a few more. You've got the E, you've got ER, you've got N, EN, S, or no ending at all. And then there are these umlauts. You know, you've seen these bad boys before. You didn't expect this to be simple, did you? But there are a few tricks you can learn to accurately predict the ending nearly all the time. Nearly all the time. You just have to know the noun's gender, but we are still getting to that part. You see a sentence like this and your English brain says, no, not today, thank you very much, this is not natural. Thing is, German word order is more flexible than English, and you can even do weird things like this. Believe it or not, these 2 sentences mean exactly the same thing. The cat scratches the man. But how is this possible? Keep watching to find out. Now, real quick, all these tricky bits of German pronunciation, vocabulary and grammar can be quite overwhelming if you try to learn them in a textbook. Fortunately, there is a much better way to get used to all of these rules. Immersion is a word you've heard from me before. When you get tons of exposure to the sounds and patterns of German, guess what happens? The language will start to stick naturally and automatically. There's no need for any annoying flashcards or boring memorization. In fact, immersion is the primary reason why Germans themselves tend to have such good English. Do they study English for many years? Well, yeah, sure they do, but that's not the main reason they get so fluent. There's many countries around the world that study English for a long time. Germans get a lot of immersion through TV and other English media. Germans watch a lot of British and American TV shows and movies. So if you want to get fluent in German, do like the Germans do and make TV and film your best friend. Okay, so you know how in English we say the cat, right? right? No matter what's going on in the sentence, if there's a cat that we're referring to, it's the cat. The cat is enormous. He ran after the cat. Well, German is not that straightforward. You can't just say the thing. You have to choose between der, die, das, den, or dem. These little words hold all the power, you see, because if you get it wrong, you botch the entire sentence. First of all, German nouns have 3 genders: masculine, feminine, and neuter. But choosing the right the depends on a thing's gender and a little something that's coming up soon. Now, check this out. Die Band means a rock band, der Band means a volume of a book, and das Band means a ribbon. One noun, 3 meanings, and the clue is all in the article. It's gender wars out there, guys. The trick is to memorize the word and the article as if they were Siamese twins, together forever. Article plus word, article plus noun, because the rules can be a little weird and even defying logic. Like, why is a girl neuter and not feminine? Why do knife, fork, and spoon all have different genders? But here's where things get interesting. A German article doesn't just have to be the correct gender. Like I hinted before, there's something else it has to match, and that thing ties it all together. The genders, the articles, the nouns, the weird word order. Any guesses where I'm going with this? German grammar has something horrible that even native speakers tend to hate. I'm talking about a mind-boggling thing called cases. Now, the case tells us what a word does in a sentence. Take our cat, for example. Is the cat doing something, or is something being done to the cat? There are different cases, you see, and German has 4 of them, and that's where these little dynamos come in. Take a look. You see, in English, the word order tells us who's doing what to whom, but in German, word order has nothing to do with it. It's the word that comes before the noun that tells us who's doing what. Starting to make sense yet? Him, he, his. You won't be surprised at this point, but German pronouns must agree with the case, person, gender, and number of nouns that they replace. That's right, your whole sentence is like a big old matching game. A very good reason to see German words in context every day, wouldn't you say? It is amazing that German kids learned how to read and write as easily as you did in English, despite it being a lot more complex.
Ja, ich gehe gerne zur Schule, weil ich dort meine Freunde treffen kann und ich in einer tollen Klasse bin.
Well, we're all about clues today, and I've given you a big one here. German kids. See, like you, they grew up listening to and reading stories. That's why it all clicks so early on in their brain, just like child's play. And if you're learning German, I've got a cool little short story for you to download free, which I'll tell you about at the end of the video. But in case you haven't noticed, we haven't come to verbs yet. Doesn't everyone love verbs?
Let the nightmare begin.
I'm only joking. Sort of. The good side, you see, is that German verbs are easy to conjugate. They usually follow the same ending patterns. Just remember that vowel changes for irregular verbs are going to be different. The challenging side, on the other hand, is that German has a thing called separable verbs. You can separate those verbs, and these can do some really, really strange things. They're basically verbs made out of a verb plus a particle or prefix. Hören means to listen or to hear, and the prefix auf can mean many different things depending on the context. You can also use a different prefix and it will change the meaning. By the way, do you say prefix or prefix? What do you say? Let me know in the comments. I never know what to say. Look at this crazy big list of separable verbs here. Separable verbs you can separate, made from hören. It can mean to ask around or to stop or to listen, but the bewildering part is how it works in a sentence. You ready for this? See that? The prefix is detached and sent to the end of the sentence, so you won't know the full meaning until you've read till the end, although context will help you out there. Of course, there's a little challenge for your brain right there. People freak out about these things sometimes, but the best way to learn all this stuff is not to learn it at all in the traditional sense of memorizing, but rather to see it always in context, like stories, because then you can just learn it naturally rather than trying to remember arbitrary rules.
Prepositionen.
Prepositions are words like over, under, in, or behind. The cat leapt onto the billiard table, as cats tend to do. And just like English, German has a long list of them, but there's more, you see. There's always more. German also has a confusing thing called two-way prepositions. Now, these little words can be followed by either the accusative or the dative case. Remember cases? Here they are again, and it can be tricky knowing which one to choose. If you use the wrong case, your whole meaning changes. But before you storm off and shout, well, I'm just going to go and learn Italian instead, I have some very happy thoughts to share with you, so listen up.
Mir ward bang, die Stunde Ende, wieder im Lauf
de sternen klaren Nacht.
Although there are undeniably some difficult things about German, there is a silver lining. German, you see, is very mathematical and logical. It really, really is. All of these complicated rules are just because there is a system. See, German is very German, you see, and where there's a system, you can apply the same rules to everything. And once you learn a German grammar rule, well, you know it for life, and it ain't gonna change. So how hard is German really? Drumroll please. Well, it is somewhere in the middle and on the easier side of things, I'd say, than on the hard side. Surprised? Well, according to our friend, the Foreign Service Institute, you could be speaking German in about 30 weeks if you have a proper go at it. And you know what? That sounds about right to me based on my own experience, especially if you use a method that helps you get used to all of that funny grammar naturally rather than tying yourself in knots, trying to memorize what case is which and all that stuff. I suggest spending a lot of time reading simple stories in German to help you learn that stuff naturally, seeing it in context. And to help you out, I've created a simple short story in German that you can try reading yourself, along with a bunch of tips for how to learn German through stories. It's completely free, link in the description below. And if you liked this video and you wish you knew more about where German came from in the first place, I'll give you a hint, it's not just Germany. Grab your popcorn and your cat or your tiger and watch this fascinating video next. Go on, have a look.